You don't usually hand the keys of a legendary program to a 35-year-old unless that dude is built different. And James Ramsey is built different. Former first rounder, All American, offensive genius, and now head coach of Georgia Tech baseball. But this isn't just a resume. I played with the dude, I saw it. 6 a.m. cage sessions, obsessive notes, visions years ahead of the rest of us. And today, we're diving into how a guy from minor league outfielder to running one of the most respected programs in the country comes to light. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not a new era for Georgia Tech. This is what happens when obsession meets opportunity. Buckle up. This is Coach James Ramsey with the Baseball Savage. Coach, what's going on, brother? How you doing?
Doing great, Ian, man. Appreciate you having me. I know we connected about making this thing happen a couple weeks ago. Been excited about it, man. I know you're doing big things too, and so it's been fun to reconnect through this.
I appreciate you, brother. Obviously, there is a whole bunch of stuff going on in your world right now, man. Can you just give us a little insight on what it's like to be you right now?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, as you take over first time as a head coach, you can prepare for it all you want. I think it comes down to, listening to, things that mentors have given me in the past, which, we all listen to podcasts, we all are reading books and professional development, or we're admiring people that are in the positions that we want to be in one day. I think the biggest thing that I keep going back to, people tell me, hey, you got to be yourself, right? I think that but you do get to make decisions now that have, longer lasting implications, or, you kind of get the final say on things. So I think that's been kind of a cool opportunity during this transition to really kind of put my stamp on things. I think that, the cool part just in terms of running the Georgia Tech program is you're going into a new era anyways. And so whether it's the revenue share side of the athletes, it's the, transfer world, I think that's been the cool part is it's been new for every head coach this year of going through things. So I think it was kind of a good natural time to do that. And then obviously keeping all the same staff and players around is going to make this process, I think, is much more seamless as we go through the next coming weeks and into the fall season.
What's going on, everybody? We as baseball players, we as athletes, we all have something in common that we all share with one another. At some point, our careers are going to come to an end, whether we play 15 years in the league or whether we don't make it past high school or college. There is this book here called The Money Playbook, which talks about financial concepts for student athletes, for professional athletes, that can set you up for the long term and get you financially educated, regardless of if you're playing for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, making millions of dollars or not. It's important to get educated. Great tool. Go on over to Amazon and check it out. It's called The Money Playbook, man. It's written by Mark Tepper, who is an NFLPA registered investment advisor. So he has worked with a plethora of professional athletes. It's got a bunch of financial concepts in there that I didn't learn until I was done playing. They don't teach you these types of concepts at the next level in professional baseball. There is no financial literacy. If you are a coach, if you're a parent, check this out. If you're a player, check this out. It's a must. Like I said, go to Amazon. We'll leave the link in the bio and the description of this episode. It's a must-have. Check it out. Let me know what you think. I love that, man. So I alluded to this in the opening line, man. You're 35. So most coaches spend decades chasing the seat that you are in right now, dude. You got it before you're 40. What made you the guy?
Yeah, I think it's a good question, right? I think, I do think what I mentioned earlier is kind of being ready for this opportunity before it presented itself. And, getting into, and we'll go back to the playing days, but I always kind of felt like I had some natural leadership qualities. And I think you just always want to be the player that guys want to play around because you're trying to make other people better. And so I think as I've kind of gone step to step, you also try to figure out what are the lessons I need to learn? Like, where's baseball, pro baseball going? Where's college baseball going? But I really do think it does, man. Everyone's going to say this and it sounds kind of cheesy, but it's like relationships have just mattered. And so I think the more people that, you've come across and you can leave a lasting impact on, I think all that stuff, continues to stay with you. So as I've done that along the way, I think I've done a really good job of just being a good steward of whatever position I'm in And so, you mentioned whether it's recruiting or it's running an offense or it's alumni relations. I think those are all things that, left a big impact on guys. And then, feel like the administration felt like, and as well as, Coach Hall. I mean, everybody kind of felt like, hey, this is exactly the direction we need to keep going. And so really grateful to have that trust of everybody going into this.
Love that, man. But before we get going into that recruiting piece and that offensive piece, man, just wanted to follow up on that kind of what you just said, man. So being an outsider looking in, okay, as Coach Hall was kind of, I'm reading about it. He's maybe on his way out. I'm like, hey, dude, who's next in line, right? Looking at your track record, looking at the stuff that you've been able to accomplish and the success you've been able to bring to Georgia Tech. For me, obviously not knowing anything, I'm like, dude, that's a no-brainer. Of course, Nat. Was there a moment in your mind where you knew that this was gonna happen, dude? Was there a specific time when you were like, dude, this is it?
Yeah, I think until, you have the conversation with like the athletic director, it doesn't fully set in. I think there was a couple moments over the course of, the 7 seasons I've been here. I think one of them was the consistent winning. I think that, you go and you start stacking, division titles in our conference titles, postseason appearances. And I do think it comes back to the players. I mean, it's the quality of player from a talent perspective, and then the recruiting classes we've been able to stack up along the way, and then guys making MLB debuts. I mean, I think you look at, okay, these are the things that the next head coach at Georgia Tech or to any other big program, we want to see guys do those things. I think throughout the course of this season, the cool part was, there wasn't anything in writing there. Everyone felt like it was going to happen. But I felt like it was definitely earned. I mean, we had a great year this year. We had one of, if not the youngest team in the ACC. We go win the regular season title. Kind of have that moment on the final day of the season that we clinched it. And a couple things had to go our way, and we had to take care of business. So, getting that process going, I think was more one of the final kind of solidifying. But obviously, we weren't content with how our year ended. Want to get to a super regional, want to get to Omaha. I think the cool part is, I mentioned none of our players even remotely wavered through this process because they felt like it was going to happen. But also, regardless, I mean, no matter if they felt like I was going to get the head coaching job or not, you would expect a little bit of push and pull and agents and families and people kind of saying, hey, well, where's my spot? What's this going to look like? And we really haven't had any of that, which is super encouraging about the culture as a whole. But then even just like the player driven culture, like that these guys are like, no, man, I'm good. We're building this thing up, and we know you trust us, and we get a say in kind of what this program is going to look like in the future.
Mm. So you had mentioned a bunch of debuts, man. Did you guys just have another debut either today or like yesterday?
Tristan English just got called up by the Diamondbacks. So, that was another guy that, since my time here I've coached, and it's been really cool to see guys make their debuts. Obviously, you have probably former MLB guys or current minor leaguers, college guys, high school players that, are part of this audience of, there's always something different about almost every single major leaguer, no matter if you play there one day or 10 years. It's that makeup separator of just, you mentioned being a savage earlier, right? Like, it's like, man, Tristan English, in the regionals in 2019, I don't know the exact, I wouldn't do it justice, but I mean, he got out less than 3 times, I think, in like a 5-game span. And that was the end of his career. He knew it. He knew he was going to get picked. But getting to see him make his debut, obviously having a couple of the other guys that are up there right now, that's like what makes it worth it, right? Like, you get into coaching, like we talked about the other day, is like you get into coaching to try to make guys better and then also make them be able to stay in baseball and do this for a living. So be able to text with Tristan. And I want to say, like, he gets there mid game, and when I was kind of talking to him around, he's like, well, I got to get ready for a pinch hit. And you've been there, right? Like, the day you show up, you got to start creating value for that big league team. So super happy for Tristan.
Man, that's incredible. Yeah, it's savage, not average, right? Average is easy. Being savage, man. I mean, it's a conscious decision you got to make every day. It's intentional being savage, right? Dude, it's difficult. Average is easy. Being savage, dude, it's not, right? That's what we're about here, man. So we're talking about obviously all positive stuff. Okay, in baseball, we are just surrounded by failure consistently. We're surrounded by doubt. We're surrounded by fear. All this good stuff. A lot of us, not me, but a lot of us are better at hiding it than others. Okay, man, what's your biggest fear as a coach? Everything's not all rainbows. I know it. There's got to be some fear, man. What's in there?
Yeah, no, I think, now being a head coach, there is naturally just more on your shoulders in terms of, listen, like a bunt defense being on or not being on, or a guy being able to make adjustments pitch to pitch, like that's all great. I think for me, you're running a program now. So when a player you're coaching, doesn't do their job in the classroom, something happens off the field. I mean, those are the fears. And I remember one of my, old coaches at Florida State had kids that were kind of college age coming through when I was playing. And I thought the advice he gave them, I've used with our guys today, which is bumps and bruises, no scars, right? Like, hey, everybody's going to be 18 years old and thinks they're invincible. And whether that's being late to class, being, unintentionally disrespectful to a coach on the field or an umpire, or, whatever it is, right? I think there's going to be moments where you're going to get knocked down and you're not going to be proud of maybe a fall you had, or maybe just a 2-week stretch of how you carried yourself. But if you can get out of the first year, like being a freshman or first year in pro ball, and just have little bumps and bruises along the way without getting scars, I think that's, once again, you asked about the fear. The fear is, you have guys that waste opportunities. You have a team that doesn't reach its potential. And I think all those things do come back to, the makeup piece I mentioned earlier. Like if you have to establish a culture, you got to let guys know, what do we want our players to embody and represent? Because I think at the end of the day, when you flip that switch at 7 o'clock at night and it's time to go play, that really is the easiest thing that we all train for. And it's the easiest part of the job. The coaching's the easy part, right? It's the other things of building a program that you need a lot more discipline and consistency to get to the heights you want to get to. It's once again, when the lights are on, of course, everybody wants to be about it, but how much can you have invested beforehand that allows you to go out and then see the results of it on the field?
Love it, man. So you had alluded to one of your coaches earlier at Florida State, man. So you had played under and have coached under some legendary coaches, man. You made the reference to bumps and bruises, not scars. Would you say that that is maybe like the biggest thing you learned from, I don't want to directly say Coach Mike Martin, right? But is that directly something that you learned maybe from Florida State or your past that you like directly implement today?
Yeah, I think that, having played for Mike Martin, coached under him, and then coached under Danny Hall, I mean, you go back to pro ball, whether it's, Mike Schilt with the Padres now, had him with the Cardinals always coming up. Matt Cotraro when he was, with Cleveland, now he's running, the Royals. Like, you find little things along the way. And I always equate it to being like a janitor's key ring. Like whether that's a hitting coach or a head coach, like you're going to have to just see how many of those keys you can put on that key ring that may unlock a lock. And that could be, man, I've got a great drill for guys that stride closed to keep them even. Or it could be, man, there's a great mound visit that you take that has nothing to do with baseball that you learn from a coach. And so I think that, you're going to work under people that, hey, this guy is more militaristic and OCD about his schedule. And I take that. Hey, I love that. Then there's going to be a hitting coach you have that mess with your mechanics all the time. It was constantly you're chasing the perfect swing and you're like, man, that wasn't me. So I don't want to be that coach that's constantly tweaking a guy's mechanics or yelling at him when he's on, in the box or on deck circle about something physical. Like, I think so. But I mean, I've had a lot of great mentors. And I think the cool part is the coaching I always enjoyed was collaboration. It was, hey, what do you think? Because once again, as a player, and I know you were the same, like you were always hungry. It was like, give me more. I think there can be a downside to that. But I do think that if you go into something with, my objective is I want to become a better two-strike hitter. Okay. And then, so then it's okay. Now you want that. Okay. Of course your coach wants that. So which drills, which thoughts, which things can we chew on? And then try to spit out this doesn't work, and try to digest this. And then, looking at the process and kind of just going about it every day. I think it's so valuable to kind of do life with people. when you're being coached by him, because it's like, man, if I say what we all said to our hitting coordinators or our GMs, wherever we saw them, how you doing? I'm great. And I said, man, you're 0 for your last 12. I know you're not. Like, just tell me you're not great. We can get past that. And then we can actually get a game plan that makes you be a better version of yourself, because you're not going to have it tonight. Your swing's not perfect. You've been chasing a bunch of pitches, or you're whiffing in zone. Until we acknowledge that, like we talk to our guys all the time about like optimistic and realistic. Like, okay, I've got to be real with you guys. This was a really unacceptable effort in this fall scrimmage because we had too many free bases. We didn't run the bases well. We didn't get the big hit. But then the optimistic side of, we did set the table. We left 12 guys on base. So there's some positive stuff there. We set the table a bunch. And we'd much rather say that than not have a guy reach second base until the sixth inning and lose 3-1. Like, right. You'd rather have traffic. So I think if you can view things through that lens, that two-way street, man, players really respond to that well. And that was always the thing I was hungry for is, hey, we got to be real. We got to acknowledge this. But then at the same time, we got to be optimistic about, the beautiful thing about baseball, no matter what level you play, is there usually is another game. And if you take this mentality of you're squeezing it too tight, sometimes you lose track of the bigger picture for sure.
Ooh, dude, I feel like I connect with that exactly. Right, we always hear the less is more type stuff, and dude, we want to be so dominant. We want to go out and get 2 hits every single at bat. Right, dude, it's like we have a chokehold on it. Man, I love that. I don't even want to start kind of going off on another tangent. Right, I don't want to go off script a little bit, but here we are, maybe talking a little bit about offense. Okay, so this is a perfect segue into something that I wanted to talk to you about. So leading the ACC in hitting is no easy feat. Okay, we know that, dude. Doing it multiple times, I mean, that's absurd. Okay, when we talk about offensive dominance, there's a whole bunch of things that people seem to be getting right, seem to be getting wrong. Right? You've coached dudes who have absolutely raked. All right, we've seen it, dude. What's the hitting philosophy when it's all boiled down, man? What do you got?
Yeah, it's the love language. Like I mean, hitting's my love language, man. Like I could sit here and talk about it all day, and I think that is the fun part of when you are still in the arena somewhat, right? Like I don't get 3 at bats, 5 at bats, but you can kind of work alongside guys and live through them. I think the hitting philosophy has adapted. I do think that's the thing that if you would have asked me at, I think I was 28 years old, 29 years old, running an offense in the ACC, fresh out of pro ball, but had the Mike Martin where you had a puzzle and it was like get a couple first round superstars at the top, and then your 6 through 9 hole, you basically put handcuffs on them. Don't let them swing first pitch. Make them take 2-0, 3-1. Like what works, right? Because if those guys are hitting there, there's a little bit of a reason. Well, and not to say that I actually did all of that right away, but I think you have that mindset of, well, this worked. I just need to repeat that. Well, I love every team. The first team, I was a coach on in the fall was a team at Florida State that went to Omaha. In the spring, it was a team at Georgia Tech that, was the number 3 national seed in the tournament and had several big leaguers on it. But it was so cool to see there was 2 totally different teams, right? I go to then the 22 team that led the country in hitting, had the individual batting title. Chandler Simpson hit 440. And you go in there and we had 1 through 9 guys could hit double-digit home runs, minus Simpson at the top, who's the most dynamic player probably in the country that year. I had to change a little bit of, man, well, why wouldn't I let my 8-hole swing away 3-0 when he's hitting backside bombs in a 3-0 count? Like our ball, like the home run wins. So I don't want to chase the almighty home run, but it's like, why would I then tell a guy that he's a table setter when he can hit a ball 107 backside out of our ballpark? So I think when it goes to overall offensive approaches, I've always taken the approach of every year's offense has to be different. It's no different than an NFL offense of, hey, you lose a guy that carried the ball a bunch. Well, you still want to get the ball to the perimeter of the field. It may just have to be through a slot receiver that you put in motion pre-snap, right? And so I think that if you look at how does the coach build the offense with principles and foundations that win, toughness, discipline, whatever those things look like. And then some years you're going to have to be more on base centered. You're going to have to be more stolen base or situational hit centered. And then there are going to be the teams like, as much as once again, as coaches, we say it drives us crazy. Well, if you have 6 guys in your lineup that can run the ball out of the ballpark, what a blessing that is, because you don't have to sit around and wait for 3 hits. It could be a hit by pitch, 0-2 hit by pitch, 3-run jack, and then you're off and running. The base hit bunt game can be a part of your offense. With shifting still able to happen at the college level, I do think we're still teaching guys at times even more than's having to be done at the pro level of hitting away from shifts when and only when that benefits us. If we're down by 5 and there's a guy in third with less than 2 outs, a 2 hopper to the second baseman may be a good situational on a non-contextualized hitting chart. But in theory, if it was 2-1 or 3-1 and you just grounded a 2 hopper to the pull side, that's not actually winning baseball if we were trying to chase a 4-run deficit, right? We actually may want you coming unglued and then ended up punching and we lose by 3. That happens. We lost. So I think winning offense obviously takes, different waves throughout the course of the season. But I think if you ask about overall offensive philosophies, man, it's like every single hitter in your lineup has to be poured into to the max. They've got to maximize their individual spot in the offense. And then when the team offense comes around, then yeah, I mean, there's things that you got to figure out ways to do with your team as a whole. But I think that's what I still love about this is what I would say our offense next year needs to be versus this year. We left a lot on the table and had an unreal year offensively. So I think that's the fun part of trying to have that engineering mindset of how do I build something every year instead of just figure out this is the way we're going to do it. And then you got to feel like you have to either recruit a certain way. For me, value's value. If you can slug and you chase a bunch and we can clean up a little bit of that, we got a seat at the table for you. If you can't slug, but you can run and you can play a premium position defensively, there's a seat at the table for you. And so that's the cool part is you spend a lot more time trying to just add to the individuals. And then I think you end up on the investing side of it, you get those compound results instead of just saying, this is what we as an offense have to do. And you're constantly maybe trying to get people to be something other than the best version of themselves.
That's fire. That's fire. I love that. I love everything that you kind of just said and dove into a little bit. Without getting too analytical, I'm getting excited because you had mentioned the recruiting piece, dude. And I just gotta jump right over there. Okay. It might come back to the offensive prowess here again, man. But nowadays, everybody is chasing the portal, right? It's a portal arms race, man. You said you're not. Right? You are building from the ground up. That isn't necessarily the sexy stuff that you see on X or Twitter, right? Or Instagram, right? It's the portal. It's the portal, man. Walk me through that. Why?
Yeah, I think part of it goes back to just having a heart for baseball is incredible, right? Baseball has afforded me so many awesome opportunities to play at a high level, to make money, as a professional baseball player, to be in big league clubhouses left and right and be surrounded by a lot of good players, right? However, it's not my total identity, right? For me is the faith side and then having a family atmosphere. I just get to be around people that are chasing excellence every day. And it just so happens to be on a baseball field. So I do think in recruiting, you recruit not to say just what you like or who you are, but you definitely, I think through this process, I've learned regardless of school, there's going to be different fits, regardless of different regionals, regions in the country you may live in or whatever, you're going to have certain pockets. I've kind of just taken it as a 1-by-1 approach, which is if I think a shortstop is great and he's from the state of Georgia and I may know his high school coach or whatever, okay, figure that out. Figure out, the makeup side of what we mentioned earlier that makes a player special. Do I think this guy at 21 is just going to be continuing to go upwards? Or do I think this kid, and thankfully we don't have to, offer scholarships to a bunch of younger kids anymore because we were cheating the process for them. If you're up at a tournament and you're doing the old looking back to see what college coach is when you're a freshman in high school, it's just not healthy to your long-term development as a player. And you probably live this. in your personal, like for me, I committed later. It would have still been early nowadays, right? But it was like we're getting back to that where it's like a junior and a senior track record in high school. At 17 years old, you're starting to scratch the surface, but you are starting to see like what type of player I could be. You don't know at 15. You just don't, right? And so I think now with recruiting is we do want to see guys trending up at the latter stages of their high school careers, starting to see the showcase circuit. I mean, you're recruiting events right now where, until it's good on good, you really don't know what you have. You could sit there and get 3 hits against 72-mile-an-hour fastballs, and it all seems like it's going good on you. But until you start facing arms that can throw 3 pitches for strikes, you really can't show a professional scout or a college coach what you're made of. And for us, we can't really start projecting out what you could be for us. But you mentioned the portal. And for me, it's like, I also have to figure out at Georgia Tech, it's an academic school, right? It's got a rich tradition of major league players. And so if you look at that, a lot of guys, you have to play. That's just simply put. High school, college. Now, I'm not saying you got to go jump around and find a place to play, but like you got to water your own grass where you're at. And if you're not good enough as a freshman to play on varsity, that's okay. Run your race. By the time you're a sophomore, look in the mirror and say, what do I have to do to get on this field and make an impact? But it's so much more fun, honestly, when like I mentioned family and mentioned that faith, like mentioned all that earlier, is when you get to recruit a kid at 17, 18, and he comes in and then he goes through ups and downs, and then you get to celebrate on draft night with him. It's a journey, man. It's like helping guys achieve their dreams. And don't get me wrong, we've crushed the portal with very small numbers but high quality players. I mentioned Chandler Simpson, Justin Henry Malloy, another big leaguer that transferred in, Kyle Lodies, who's about to be, potential first, second round pick in the draft, came in from Division II to Georgia Tech and absolutely balled out, right? Polished parts of his games, but part of it was, I mean, he even talks about he was like 140 something pounds as a senior in high school. And he went D2. That was the right decision for him instead of chasing, the power four fever, as we call it, of just I want the Instagram post. I want people to feel like I have clout because I'm committed to a great program instead of, and that was the last thing I'd say about recruiting that has shaped my vision is when you play and you go to Major League Spring Training and you play in AA, you look around and you go, these are some of the best players in the world. Okay. They're not making millions yet, but they're from so many different walks of life. But you know what they've all had to do? They all had to grind. They all had to produce and show up at some point in their careers. And they're from any and every country, any and every college, any and every area. And so the game will kind of find you regardless of where you are. And so obviously for us, man, it's like we played some of the most freshmen in Division I 2 years in a row. Now that resonates with people in their living rooms or when we're talking to them on Zoom calls, like we play freshmen. In the day, these guys want to play, man. And so when you have a track record of doing it, not just talking about it, I think it's reaped benefits year after year for us.
Yeah, dude, the recruiting game is so crazy now, right? We hear that, I think the 26s, right? They're getting screwed the most just because of roster this, roster that. Yeah, I get it, man. There's so many question marks around almost everything, right? I feel like I have coaches on here, man. Like, we got Coach Godwin, Coach Pollard come on, man. I'm asking them about the state of the game moving forward, and it's almost like, man, we're not entirely sure, right? But we know that recruiting is forever changing, man. I know that it was a lot different when we were going through the recruiting process, dude. I'm sure being at this hotbed for baseball talent, for major league talent, you see a lot of stuff, okay? Especially around the recruiting process. People think maybe they're making strides. Man, we got parents probably doing a little bit too much. People just having crazy ways of trying to get your attention, okay? I'm sure you've seen, wild bat flips, the perfect game invites, man. I get it. Kids tagging you after, going 0 for 3 with 2 strikeouts, but the line out was hard. Right, dude. What's the other stuff that players are just like wasting their time on, man? That they just can't fully grasp, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think I mentioned kind of like running your race, right? I think whatever you as a player have, your goals are going to be different than the guy next to you, but you have to clearly define those. Like if you say, which who doesn't want to play in the big leagues, right? Like I want to be a big leaguer. It was like, okay, so that's a pretty far down the road goal you have. If you want to be a major league player in one of the point one of the point one of the point 1%, that is, it is about talent. It is about, production. It is about being in the right place at the right time. What other things have to happen? So I think if you, on the flip side though, if you say, I just want to be a D1 commit, or I want to be a power four commit, or I want to be a ACC, whatever those things, well, walk me through why, right? I think the big question I always ask, like, do you love it or like it because you're good at it? Or are you good at it because you love it, right? And I think that's where everyone in today's era, like, it's what's right in front of them. And I think being committed or playing and wearing a jersey of a top 25 ranked program, it's awesome. It's incredible. It's something guys should aspire to. But then what? Then you need to play. Then you need to start. Then you need to get drafted. Instead of like, okay, clearly define, if you're thinking about like a race, in a long term, not a circular racetrack, but you're just looking at the path. Okay, where do you want to go? And then set those checkpoints. Because if all you want to do is get committed to a big school, well, then you get there and then you're going to be super lost. And there's going to be forks in the road of opportunities. Then you're going to need well, you didn't play enough. So now you're going to go down, and then you want to get back, and then you want to get drafted. If you want to get drafted, you can get drafted at anywhere. But that also means you got to go ball out at wherever you are. And so I think people also get too caught up in, okay, I see that destination, but I want it now, instead of I need to do the things I need to do. If I look at what a ACC, SEC player looks like physically, if I look at the velo they're facing, and then to your point, I have a 30% K rate in travel events this summer, there's probably a lot of red flags that say you would be the 1% if you play in those leagues and ran a 30% K rate as a high schooler and didn't just hit absolute tanks, right? So I think part of it is, yeah, like, you got to try stuff out in your career too from a young age. Play multiple positions, try to do a no stride with two strikes, try to actually start pulling the ball in the air and batting, like whatever those things are. I think you get way too caught up in, okay, what's the first kind of thing I can attach myself to? And that would be my advice of people is just, man, run your race. You don't know if it's going to be Von Lackey is playing and catching for Team USA right now. Von Lackey got signed in April of his senior year by us. Went to see him play, had seen some video, watched him a couple times, and I'm like, I'm all in. And you kind of look around, a lot of big schools entered super late. But
How
before,
did you know that he was all? How did you know? So like, what made you say that he's all in? So that's late, dude. April of the senior year.
yep,
That's late. So he went under the radar, and you saw him, and you were like, I'm all in on that guy. How?
I think part of it is when, you're playing in the Atlanta area against really good schools and you start to have some success. Like I remember, and I joke with him about this all the time. Like, I don't even feel like he was gripping the bat the right way the first time I go to watch. Like he was more turned, and that like attracted me to him because I'm like, if he has bat speed and he's able to do some of this stuff and he doesn't even know what he's doing, like I see that as a great thing. Like so many times I think players want to be so polished, which once again, it's good to be able to get closer to your ceiling. But watching Vaughn, like catching stance, primary wasn't good. Throwing at, like, he was playing shortstop behind home plate. And you're like, I want a shortstop behind home plate. Like that's what you want, right? Like Buster Posey was a shortstop that goes behind home plate. Austin Barnes, I mean, you see that and you're like, you know what? I think that's worth taking a shot on, because once again, the guys that are just bigger and more mature and they've had hitting lessons their whole life, that guy is going to be closer. His floor and his ceiling are going to be closer together. And listen, we can't take all risks all the time, but like Vaughn, likely will be a first rounder next year. And part of that is, man, like just so much untapped, just in there with his physical skills and his work ethics off the charts. And so you look at, what a guy like him, that as good as he was his freshman year, his baseball card statistics were not good. They were not good. And a lot of times scouts and different people were like, man, we sit here and we put him in this group with our other elite players. And I don't think people saw that. And then he leads power four catchers in hits last year, hits like 350, 360 after hitting like 200 the year before. Like you see strides like that. That's the fun part of, like, you see he makes contact. He can make adjustments. He's athletic. Like for us as coaches, and you've been there as a player, but as a coach, you see it like, I've got to keep running this dude because it's in there. And then when they have those little light bulb click on moments, you realize now that, saw him up in the Cape before I went to USA. I'm like, dude, you're him. You're Team USA catcher. Like, not to say he wasn't carrying himself like that, but he's so humble and he's like, looks at me, he's like, I am him. Like, I need to and it's, it's like he's so like I said, humble, but he's goofy and he's doing the, video vlogs with Team USA and they picked the perfect person because he's got an incredible personality. But I think that's a great example of a player that he just shows up every day wanting to play baseball like we're playing wiffle ball in the backyard. And I think there's definitely something that for me as a coach, creating that environment for them to make it be like they're playing wiffle ball with their boys back in the day is what makes the hard, tough work go by a little easier. And then you get ready for the game and it's just, let's go play.
Isn't that the truth, man? I love that. We love hearing about the underdog stories about dudes blossoming into their full potential, and we're just kind of like unearth gems a little bit as they're coming up, dude. We love hearing stuff like that, especially on the stage that you guys are at, having the success that you're having. And this guy, I mean, he's Team USA catcher, and this guy isn't getting offered till April of his senior year. It's craziness. Okay. Again, we're here with Coach James Ramsey, head coach, Georgia Tech. Coach, I got like one more question for you, man. I'm so grateful for the time. We've talked about some insight on offensive prowess, man. We've talked about recruiting. We've talked about the portal, all that good stuff, man. We've talked about some advice for the next generation. Okay, man. What is something that we could leave off on? What's like a brutal truth, just an eye-opening truth that every parent of a ball player needs to hear right now, but for whatever reason, nobody's telling them, man. What do you got?
Yeah, I think you're starting to see it, which, probably doesn't hit to the core of the question, but it's like, there's no rush. There just isn't. Like, your son needs to figure out how much he loves to play and the work he wants to put in. And then it's okay if these things aren't happening for him. But I think it's like everybody's process is different. Everybody's maturity from a talent perspective, everything works out the way it is. And I think the other part is like, as the parents, don't get caught up in it, because I think the one thing that we see that is tough is when the parents, hey, they love them, they put money and time and effort into their kids, but then they start living out the dream on both sides. They start really kind of falling on every at bat and kind of riding that roller coaster. It's hard enough. We've been there to ride it when you're a player. And when you feel like, once again, it's great to have the support system like on your way up, but you got to have them on the way down. And so it's like they don't need to be told they had a bad game in front of college coaches. They'll be the hardest critics. I remember getting recruited and it was big time coach at the time. And I had what I thought was like terrible game, right? Oh, this school's not going to offer. Well, they did. And they were super interested, but it was like, man, when I talked to that coach, I'll always remember this. Like, you hit a fly ball way up in the air. You ran all the way to second. I timed it, the hang time, the running time, you're a stud. And I was like, oh, I could prove that while flying out, to like shallow right field. Like, but I think that's the thing. And if you're a parent, you're saying, oh, you went over and this happened and you booted a ball. It's like the coach really is watching how you dealt with that error. And are you the guy that catches it and you just like, it's like the super rehearse, like my bad, or it's the, hey, throw it back. Or is it like a genuine, like, get it back to him, tell the pitcher, hey, give me the next one. And then 4 pitches later, you're still saying that when the pitcher falls behind 3-0, so it's like everybody's kind of gets coached in today's era. But I think with parents, man, it's like, you got to love them regardless of how they do. You've got to be able to have them keep perspective, because once again, like I always say this in like recruiting, it's like the NCAA tagline of like, so a lot of people are going to go professional in something other than sports. Hate to break it to them, but how much do you set them up for being the dad now when they have children that play? Like, are you really pouring into them and wanting them to know, hey, I want it done better when it's your turn to raise a son? Or, hey, when you're working in corporate America, what does hard work actually look like? Like, what does taking no shortcuts look like? I think that's the biggest thing I'd tell parents is they gotta, hey, riding that roller coaster once again. Like you got to be with them for sure. But don't be the one that's like, feel like you're tugging on the way down, and then on the way up, you're like stepping in front, and you want that newspaper clipping of them getting drafted more than they do, right? Then you start just, now it's both your identities are getting wrapped up in it. That'd be my biggest 2 cents for parents.
Love that, man. I love that. I fire me up, dude. We just heard from a dude who didn't just talk about doing things the right way, man. He built it. Here he is right now, right? From first rounder to program architect to mentor, leading the way for a dominant baseball team. Coach, this was an honor, man. Like, who would have thought, having conversations back in spring training 2018 that we'd be doing this right now. It's a beautiful thing, man. I'm fired up to see what you build moving forward. And obviously, so is this audience, man. I'm grateful for the time.
Can't wait to get you down to Atlanta, man. Come see what we got going. So it's a lot of special, times ahead here, and appreciate all you do just for the game, man. Like getting people to see that there's more out there, but at the end of the day, you got to have fun. You got to love what you do every day and have that energy. So definitely appreciate all you're doing as well.
Absolute. Appreciate the time. We'll be there this year, man. We'll be down in Atlanta this year. Now, listen, guys, if you got value from this, do what winners do. Subscribe, drop a comment, and share this with someone who needs to hear it, because this is just the beginning. And around here, we don't play for clout. We play savage.